Welcome to the third video in our Lector training series. In this installment, we'll talk about the rituals involved in being a lector. But first, let's explore the lector's role and your ministerial identity. Keep in mind that Jesus himself was a lector. We hear in Luke chapter 4 that Jesus went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and there he stood up to read and was handed a scroll of the prophet Isaiah. And according to church documents, the reader at Mass isn't optional, but is instead an integral part of our liturgical celebration. This is a key element of your identity as a liturgical minister. You are not simply helping out, but you are fulfilling a ministry that goes back even to our Jewish roots. Knowing this will influence your actions. I've seen lectors who were seemingly trying to sneak up to the ambo as though the assembly wouldn't notice, probably because they felt like they were interrupting the flow of the liturgy, but nothing could be further from the truth. When you approach the ambo, do it with your head up, filled with the confidence that your role is a key element of the Mass, and with the dignity that accords being part of our worship. Next, let's talk about the altar platform and liturgical movements around it. The ambo is the elevated lectern to the front left as you face the altar. The ambo is the location where sacred scripture is read. You might also hear it called the pulpit in some churches. With very few exceptions, this is the location where you will carry out your ministry. Of course, we all know the altar, which symbolizes Christ in the sacrifice of the Mass. And on the other side of the altar platform is the chair where the celebrant sits. Sometimes you may be asked to place a book or other item at the chair, and so it would go on the table. You also find the cantor and the musicians on this side of the altar platform. Movement around this space involves some precision because we don't want to distract from the flow and tone of the Mass. We'll cover some general principles here, and in later videos cover each of the lector's tasks in more detail. When you are assigned to read, we ask that you sit in the first few rows of church in the center section on the left side. This makes it convenient to approach the altar from the center aisle. At the proper time, which we'll cover in other videos, you approach the altar at a normal walking pace. You don't want to hurry, nor do you want to be too slow. Approaching the altar at the proper time is often a bit uncomfortable until you get used to the timing, because your movement will often start before or just as the previous action is ending. You'll need to give yourself time to get to your place without too much delay, and that means you'll often stand and move around the space at times that might seem awkward at first. But let me reassure you that it isn't intrusive or distracting. It is what people expect to happen. And as long as you move with confidence and purpose, nobody will find it unusual. Another ritual action that may be a bit uncomfortable is bowing. During Mass, lectors bow to the altar when they approach and leave the platform. Bowing communicates respect, reverence, and gratitude. We are glad to be in the service of the Lord, and so we bow. When you are doing your reading, you'll bow at the top of the steps at the center of the altar. There's no reason to exaggerate the action. You just make a dignified, reverent show of respect to the altar. Again, you should move with confidence without hurrying and without making a big show of the action. And if you keep in mind why we bow, that we are demonstrating respect for the altar as a symbol of Christ, it will help make this action feel more natural. The next videos cover each element of the ministry of the lector. There is a lot of material to cover, so we've created reference materials that are available on our website. And after you've completed all of this online training, don't forget, we'll have the opportunity to practice in church.